This tutorial should give you a quick overview of SoapUI and how to use it for your web services testing. SoapUI is an open source web services testing tool for service-oriented architecture. Download the standalone version of SoapUI by following the instructions on the wiki page. Once you have SoapUI installed, you can launch it by going to the bin folder under the SoapUI installation. Once you have SoapUI launched, all you need is the WSDL file URL to get started. A WSDL file stands for Web Services Description Language, and the URL for a WSDL file is typically provided by a developer. A WSDL is a contract between a service provider and a consumer. So in our case, while testing, we are the consumer, and we grab the WSDL file URL, and on the SoapUI, from the file menu, select New SoapUI project. Give your project a name, and paste the URL that you have copied. Select the first two options, which says create sample requests for all the operations, create a test suite for the imported WSDL. SoapUI organizes tests into test suites, test cases, and test steps automatically once you select this option. Once you hit OK, SoapUI connects to the server to the web services endpoint and generates all the sample requests and organizes them into test suites, test cases, and test steps. Select the default options on the Generate Test Suite dialog and hit OK. Give a name to your test suite. You can always change this later by right-clicking on the test suite once it's generated. Once I hit OK, you see that SoapUI has generated the sample requests. It has organized our tests, created a test suite, test case, and under the test case you see that there is a test step. Double click on the test step, remove the optional parameters just to run it. You can run the test case by clicking on the play button here. It's actually connecting to the web service endpoint and getting the response now, or waiting for the response. As you see, when the response comes back, it's displayed on the right side. You can create multiple test steps by right-clicking on the test steps and say add step test request, and play around with the request as required for your testing. As you switch from one environment to another, you can edit the WSDL URL. Like right now you are in testing environment, and tomorrow you are in a kind of staging environment, and you want to change the URL of the WSDL file. You can do that by going to the navigator here and say edit current, and you can change the server name or play around with the context of your web app as required. SoapUI also allows you to create load tests. You can create a load test very easily by right-clicking on the load tests here on the left and say new load test. Give your load test a name, hit OK. You can select the criteria as needed, the number of threads that should be running, the test delay. You can choose the options as required, and you can use the play button here to run your load tests. SoapUI also provides mock services. Mock services are really helpful in cases SoapUI allows you to create web services simulation of the imported WSDL. This is very helpful, especially with the contract WSDL first development, where a tester can write or run tests against the mocked service instead of waiting for developers to complete the actual implementation. The last topic that we'll be covering is the authentication and username token. All Sorian public services must be secured using WS Security User Token technique. This consists of the SOAP header contained in the user ID containing the user ID and the password. This technique ensures that the SOAP message contains the correct header and validation is done against the LDAP directory. The user or the tester receives a SOAP fault if authentication fails. To add a user token data to your request, you can always go to the wiki page, copy the header from here and edit it as required. Change the username, password, add another namespace that your service might need, and the rest of the message will look the same. Thank you for taking time and listening. Happy SoapUi-A testing.